And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Is the sequel as good? Well, that's the question here today as we look at the Board Game Book Volume 2. This is from the same folks who made the Board Game Book Volume 1. This is a actual, real, for goodness sake, book here. And in this book, it talks all about board games with lots of colorful pictures. The last one I absolutely loved. Said it was one of the best board game books I've ever seen. Can this compete with that? Let's find out. Okay, so let's take a look here at this book. Nice hard-covered book, Volume 2. I almost wish they could have called it something other than Volume 2 because maybe just, it feels like you can't read it unless you read Volume 1 maybe to some people. I worry about that a little bit. So inside here, it looks like a yearbook. You want to sign it. There's the editor's introduction, Owen Duffy, and you can see this is the group of people who put it together. Some of them I know. Then it has the table of contents. It starts off with the games of the year. Now, they have them separated by categories. So we have the family, casual, and party, light strategy, medium strategy, complex strategy, RPGs, and miniature games. And so these are all in here. They have the winner with the runner-up. And that's fine. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with the picks, but I don't disagree with the fact of the games themselves. I think the games are games that are worth talking about. And you'll notice there's interesting things here. You have Cthulhu, Death May Die, and Complex Strategy, which is a Ameritrashy, go run around and fight things game, and Crown of Amara, which is a straight-up Euro-style game. So then it starts off, there's a few advertisements throughout the book, not too many, and then they actually match what's in here. But, they start with party games. And so one of the things that they do, and they did this in the first book, it's great, they talk about the game. Really well done. All the stats, designers, artists, category, players, time, ages, and what the price is at, whatever time that was done. And then here they have an interview they did with the designers and kind of a box on the designers. It's a nice 2-page spread. And as you go through here, they follow that category quite a bit when they go through that format. The pictures themselves are really well done. They'll occasionally do a change up here, white printing on black where it matches the game. And some games like this one here got 3 pages, while Wavelength just gets 1 page. But then that means there's no interview that goes along with that. But it's really nice to see the interviews. They specifically ask them questions. It's all really well written. And, this is the kind of just a fun thing to sit down and go through. Then we have light strategy. And, you might disagree with, where they categorize this, but I think they did a good job. I've not read every single page of this book, but I have read through quite a bit of it. And I really like how it's laid out and how it's written and how it goes. It's a really good idea to start with the party games and to get heavier as you go through. Then we have the medium games, and there's Wingspan. Wingspan gets a 4-page spread, which is fine because it's that popular. But you also notice that as you go through here, most of these games, I've heard of, I think there was maybe one game in this book that I had not heard of, but most of these games are going to attract people, and they're not putting in here bad games. These are quality games. You may not like some of them, but they're games that people are going to talk about and have fun playing. And so we're moving into the heavier games now. Irish Gauge, Villagers. Oh, here's the complex ones. And they always start with the winner. There's Cthulhu, Death May Die. But they got Star Wars Outer Rim, Taverns of Tiefenthal, Dune. And Dune's not even a new game per se, but it was reprinted last year. That gets a nice spread. Of course, with the movie coming out, that kind of makes sense. And you can see right now, I'm hoping you can see that just flipping through this book makes me just happy because it just looks so good. I like every once in a while, the black pages with the other printing on them. Then they got role-playing games. Not a major section of the book, just a small chapter, but it is board game adjacent. And as is miniature games. And there's only a few miniature games. Well, there isn't that many miniature games in existence anyway. And these are ones that would likely appeal to maybe someone who likes board games. And then a gamer's glossary, which I think is really nice. Like, hey, this is what deck building means. Dexterity game, drafting, dungeon crawler, Euro game. It even mentions that in there. Ameritrash. I mentioned both those terms as I talked about this. I like that style thing. And then, of course, the games index, and then there were Kickstarter backers. So there you go. That's what's in the book. Amazing. We definitely live in an era where digital is king, right? And I tend to read more digital things than I read physical. But this is what I call, the coffee table book. The book that you just leave sitting on your coffee table, and people who come will pick it up and take a look at it. And I'll tell you, this is fantastic. It's fantastic for gamers. It's fantastic for people who've never played games before. I mean, let's say you're just a diehard gamer. You're like, I don't need this book. I know about these games. But there's lots of good interviews and stats in here and stuff. And if you're not a gamer and you've never played board games before, this gives you a lot of detailed information. It's not necessarily reviews. I mean, it is to some degree. They're not necessarily saying good or bad. In fact, I would argue that if it's in this book, they're considering it to be good. And you all know that I'm very opinionated, and some of these games I love, some of them I like, and there's a few in here I don't like, but there's no game in here which I would say that has no place being in a book like this. And I know games that have no place being in a book like this. Just as good, if not better, than the first book. The only negative thing I could say is I wouldn't put this volume 2 on it. Just because I think for someone who might be new to gaming, that would throw them off. I'm not starting with volume 2 of something. But that being said, fantastic. Good cover art, great write-ups, good interviewing, good writing, fantastic pictures. If you're a board gamer, this is something you might want to have in your house just for decoration, but also for good reading. And it's also a good gift to give people. Maybe someone who's new into board gaming, this would be something I could see them really poring over and enjoying. This, as well as the first volume, are the definitive best books about board gaming that are out there, I think. So definitely check it out. I'm Tom Vasel. We'll see you next time. Dice Tower Judgment, excellent!